The room was cold, expensive, and too polished to hold the kind of betrayal sitting inside it. Sunlight spilled across the glass table. A silver pen rested near the final page. Across from Elena Hartwell sat the man who had once promised to protect her, build with her, and grow old beside her. Marcus Vale no longer looked like a husband. He looked like a man attending the funeral of someone else's dignity. Beside him sat Vanessa Reed, flawless in cream silk, one leg crossed over the other, wearing the smile of a woman who believed she had already replaced history. The attorney cleared his throat, but before anyone spoke, Elena slowly reached for the papers. She did not cry. She did not plead. She did not even look broken. And before this story goes any further, please like and subscribe to the channel. Marcus leaned back in his chair and let out a small laugh. It was the kind of laugh men use when they mistake silence for defeat. "You should read it carefully," he said. "After this, everything changes." Elena finally looked up. Her face was calm, almost serene, and that calm irritated him more than anger would have. He wanted a scene. He wanted trembling hands and damaged pride. He wanted evidence that he still had the power to shake her. Instead, she gave him nothing. Vanessa smirked. "Some women never realize when it's over." Elena's fingers rested on the paper. "Some people," she said softly, "never realize when it has just begun." Neither of them understood what she meant. Not yet. Because they thought this meeting was the ending of a marriage. For Elena Hartwell, it was simply the moment the masks came off. And by the time the truth reached them, one would lose his career, one would lose her illusion, and both would discover that the quiet woman they mocked had never been standing beneath them at all. She had been standing above them the entire time. Marcus signed first, fast and arrogant, as if he could not wait to be free of her name. His cufflinks flashed when he moved. The gold watch on his wrist looked expensive, but Elena knew most of Marcus's luxury came from access, not ownership. Marcus loved appearances. He wore wealth the way actors wore costumes, convincingly, but not truthfully. Vanessa watched him sign and touched his arm like she had helped win a prize. The attorney slid the document toward Elena. "Mrs. Vale, once you sign, the residence, vehicles, and public accounts remain under the existing arrangement." Marcus smiled. "Very fair, actually." Elena glanced at the list without emotion. The penthouse, the sports cars, the lake property, the public portfolios. Visible assets, loud assets, toys for insecure people. None of the documents mentioned the protected trust. None of them mentioned the controlling shares. None of them mentioned Meridian Air and Freight. Most importantly, none of them mentioned who actually had authority over the charter division Marcus bragged about to impress other men. Elena picked up the pen. Vanessa tilted her head. "No fight? No demands? No speech about everything you sacrificed?" Elena signed the first page, then the second, then the last. "I learned something," she said while placing the pen down. Marcus folded his arms. "What's that?" "That people only show you who they are after they think you've lost." The attorney looked uncomfortable. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Marcus stood and gathered his copy of the papers. "I hope you find peace, Elena." But he did not mean peace. He meant obscurity. He meant disappear. He meant become small enough that he would never have to feel guilty. Vanessa rose beside him. "I'm sure she'll adjust. Women always do." Elena stood slowly, smoothing the sleeve of her dark blue dress. "Yes," she said. "Some do. Some rebuild." Marcus gave a dismissive laugh. "Rebuild with what?" Elena met his eyes for one long second. with what was always mine. Then she turned and walked out before they could ask what that meant. Behind her, Vanessa laughed first. Marcus joined in, and the sound followed Elena down the marble hallway like cheap perfume. Loud, artificial, and gone the moment the air changed. Outside, the city glowed beneath late afternoon light. Elena stepped past Marcus's imported coupe, past the cameras, past the doorman who tried not to stare. Parked at the curb was a plain gray SUV. Dust at the tires, no shine, no performance. Her cousin, Jalen Hart, sat behind the wheel with one hand on the steering wheel and anger already written across his face. He unlocked the passenger door before she even reached it. "Well?" he asked after she got in. "Elaborate humiliation," Elena said. "Predictable dialogue." Jalen exhaled hard and started the engine. "You really let them think they won?" "I let them relax. That man insulted your father's name, your marriage, and your intelligence." "Yes," Elena replied. "And now, he feels safe enough to make mistakes." Jalen drove through downtown without another word for a minute. He had grown up with Elena, knew the difference between her silence and her surrender. And this silence was not surrender. This silence had edges. His phone buzzed through the console speaker. Miriam Cole, Family Counsel. Jalen answered and put her on speaker. "We're on our way." Miriam's voice came through calm and clipped. "Good. The archive file your father isolated matches the travel records. We also found irregular consultant payments linked to an outside holding group." Elena rested her head against the seat and closed her eyes briefly. "So it wasn't just the affair?" "No," Miriam said. "It was never just the affair." The city blurred past the window. Her father, Isaiah Hartwell, had built Hartwell Meridian Holdings from freight contracts, air cargo routes, and years of being underestimated. He used to say the loudest people in business were usually borrowing power from quieter men. Marcus never understood that. Marcus loved the performance of importance. He loved walking into private terminals as if people should notice him. He loved saying things like, "My aircraft, my route, my team." But Marcus had never built anything large enough to belong to him. Jalen looked at Elena. "Where are we headed? Home?" She opened her eyes. "No," she said. "To the terminal." Because if Marcus wanted to celebrate his freedom, Elena intended to begin with the sky he thought he owned. The executive terminal sat on the quieter side of the airport, removed from commercial traffic, hidden behind steel gates and old money. Here, no one performed importance. People either had authority or they did not. Engines hummed in the distance. Ground crews moved efficiently beneath floodlights. Inside the operations wing, everything smelled of fuel, leather, and discipline. Captain Nolan Pierce met Elena near Hangar 4. He had flown for her father for 12 years and trusted noise less than records. "Ms. Hartwell," he said with a respectful nod. "The files are ready." He handed her a secure folder thick with manifests, route revisions, fuel authorizations, and passenger additions. Elena opened it on a metal work table. Marcus's name appeared repeatedly. New York, Miami, Houston, St. Bart's, Denver, Lisbon. Some flights were business-related. Many were not. Beside several routes appeared one repeated name, Vanessa Reed. But she was not listed as staff. She was listed as executive guest. Elena turned another page, then another. Then her expression changed. Chicago. 3 weeks before Isaiah Hartwell died, Marcus had taken one of the company jets to Chicago with Vanessa and a man named Lucian Cross. Jalen leaned over her shoulder. Cross? Elena nodded slowly. Lucian Cross was not just a businessman. He was a predator in tailored wool, a hostile acquisition specialist who built empires by finding weakness inside family companies and turning greed into a weapon. He had tried 3 times to buy transport lanes from Elena Hartwell. Each time he was refused. Isaiah once said, "Some men don't build doors. They just wait for someone careless enough to leave one open." Elena stared at the manifest. Marcus opened it. Captain Pierce placed another thin binder beside her. "There's more. Your father instructed me to keep corrected logs separate from the official ones." Elena looked up. "Corrected?" Pierce's face remained unreadable. "The official logs were cleaned. These are the real passenger records." Jalen swore under his breath. Elena kept reading. What Marcus saw as luxury had been a pattern. What he saw as romance had been access. And what Vanessa thought was a glamorous affair may have been recruitment. The deeper Elena looked, the clearer it became. Her marriage had not simply collapsed. It had been used. In the secure conference room overlooking the hangar floor, Miriam Cole waited with a stack of legal folders and a sealed envelope Elena recognized instantly. It was ivory, creased at the edge and marked in her father's handwriting. For Elena. Only if Marcus forces the end, or Cross makes his move. Her throat tightened. Miriam stood. "He left it with me 4 days before he died." Jalen pulled out a chair, but Elena remained standing. She opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. "My girl, if this reaches you, then someone close to us has confused your kindness with weakness. Do not waste your energy proving your worth to thieves. Study the doorway they used. Follow the permissions. Follow the fear. Most betrayal begins where vanity meets opportunity." Elena swallowed and kept reading. "Marcus has been speaking with men who do not build, only take. I could not yet prove whether he is ambitious, compromised, or simply foolish enough to be useful. It may be all 3. If anything happens before I finish what I started, review the private route logs, consultant approvals, and board communications. Trust Miriam. Trust Jalen. Trust your own stillness." Elena lowered the paper. For one moment, grief pressed against her chest so hard she thought it might crack her open. Miriam gently slid forward another folder. "The consultant trail leads through a media strategy shell called Gray Line Advisory." Elena opened it. Payments, monthly deposits, consulting retainers. And there it was. Vanessa Reed had been receiving money through Gray Line Advisory, an entity quietly tied to Lucian Cross Holdings. Jalen paced once across the room. "So Vanessa wasn't just the mistress." Miriam nodded. "Not just. Maybe not even primarily." Elena thought about Vanessa in the divorce room, so confident, so smug, so certain she had risen because she was chosen. Maybe she had been used, too. That did not make her innocent, but it changed the shape of the board. "What about Marcus?" Elena asked. Miriam slid a tablet across the table. On screen was an unsent proposal draft from Marcus's corporate account. Root access, vendor vulnerabilities, executive weaknesses, acquisition forecasts. In exchange, Marcus requested senior operating authority after a forced restructuring. Elena stared at the screen until every doubt burned away. He had not only betrayed his wife, he had tried to sell her father's legacy. "Does he know?" Jalen asked quietly. Miriam didn't need clarification. "About the trust? No." Elena looked up. "Are you certain?" "Completely. Isaiah kept your controlling authority sealed behind the Hartwell Legacy Trust. Marcus knows the public board. He does not know who controls the voting structure behind it." Jalen gave a short, humorless laugh. "So tomorrow, he's going to walk into your building believing he still has power." Elena folded her father's letter and slipped it into her bag. "No," she said. "He's going to walk into my building believing he has power." There was a difference. Outside the conference room window, one of the company's long-range jets rested beneath hangar lights, white and silver, silent and enormous. Marcus liked to call it his regular aircraft. Elena almost smiled at the thought. Miriam watched her carefully. "What do you want to do?" Jalen answered first. "We pull his access tonight. Freeze his accounts. Public statement by morning." "No," Elena said. Both of them turned. "No noise tonight. Let him sleep well. Let him arrive tomorrow dressed for confidence. Let Vanessa come in smiling. Let them both keep their script for a few more hours." Miriam's expression changed with recognition. "Your father would say the same." Elena touched the ring on her hand. Not a wedding ring anymore, just a simple band she had worn long before Marcus. A loud move warns desperate people. I don't want warning. I want proof. Jalen crossed his arms. "And if Cross senses anything?" "He won't," Elena said. "Men like Lucian Cross mistake composure for weakness. That's why they always reveal themselves too soon." Miriam nodded once. "I'll prepare the suspension orders and board authority file." "Eliminate nothing yet," Elena said. "Flag every access point, monitor every communication, and have internal security record any attempt Marcus makes to override operations." Jalen grinned for the first time since the divorce. "You're going to let him walk himself into the trap?" Elena looked out at the aircraft again. "No," she said softly. "He already has. Tomorrow is just when he learns the door is locked." Marcus Vale arrived at Hartwell Meridian headquarters the next morning in a charcoal suit and a face full of self-importance. He moved through the marble lobby with the smooth arrogance of a man who believed the world had finally agreed with him. Vanessa walked beside him in red heels, oversized sunglasses, and the kind of smile people wear when they think envy is the same thing as admiration. A few employees looked up, then down. They had all seen the photos from the previous night. Champagne, lake house lights, Marcus raising a glass, Vanessa leaning against him. The caption read, "New era, better company, better life." People always tell on themselves when they think humiliation is entertaining. Vanessa tapped the reception desk. "Please tell communications I'll be late. Marcus and I have executive matters." The receptionist, Naomi, kept her tone professional. "Of course, Ms. Reed." Marcus adjusted his cuff. "Also, make sure the Helios jet is held for this weekend. We may go to Napa." Naomi paused. "The aircraft schedule is restricted today, sir." Marcus frowned. "Restricted by whom?" Before she could answer, a calm voice came from behind him. "By me." The lobby changed. Not with noise, with stillness. Marcus turned first. Vanessa removed her sunglasses slowly. Elena stood near the elevator in a tailored black suit, her hair pinned neatly, a leather portfolio tucked beneath one arm. Beside her stood Miriam Cole. Behind them stood Jalen and two members of corporate security. Marcus let out a short laugh. Elena, this is a workplace. Personal emotions shouldn't follow people into business. Elena looked at him as if she were discussing weather. I agree. That unsettled him. He had expected heartbreak. He had expected accusation. He had not expected governance. Vanessa folded her arms. I don't think this is appropriate. Miriam stepped forward. Conference room 8. Now. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? Elena never raised her voice. Conference room 8. You may walk there, or security may accompany you. Naomi lowered her eyes to the desk, but Elena saw the tiny shift in her mouth. People knew. Maybe not the details, but they knew a storm had entered the building wearing silk gloves. And for the first time all morning, Marcus's smile did not return quickly enough. Conference room 8 overlooked the Eastern Flight corridor. Beyond the glass, one of the company's jets taxied under a pale sky, steady and elegant, like certainty. Marcus reached the table first and instinctively sat at the head. Old habits. Borrowed authority. Elena remained standing. That seat is reserved, she said. He smirked. For who? For the owner. Vanessa laughed too quickly. Enough drama. Miriam placed a thick legal folder in front of Marcus. Open it. Marcus did. Vanessa leaned in. The first page showed the Hartwell Legacy Trust structure. The second showed voting authority. The third showed executive chain protections activated upon Isaiah Hartwell's death. By page 4, Marcus had stopped pretending to understand more than he did. He looked up. What is this? Elena sat at the head of the table. This, she said, is the part of the company you were never important enough to see. Vanessa's face lost color first. Marcus stared at the file again. Controlling trustee, Elena Hartwell. Majority authority, Hartwell Legacy Trust. Operational override rights, Elena Hartwell. Restricted executive controls, subject to trustee approval. No, Marcus said. Miriam's voice remained flat. Yes. No. Isaiah would have told me. Elena held his gaze. My father did not trust you. The silence after that landed harder than any shout. Vanessa straightened. This is ridiculous. Marcus runs strategy. Did, Elena corrected. Miriam slid forward another document. Effective immediately, Marcus Vale is placed on administrative suspension pending investigation into unauthorized transport usage, confidential data exposure, and breach of executive duty. Marcus pushed back from the table. You can't do this. I already have. Vanessa looked between them. What confidential data? Elena opened a second file. The routes, the forecasts, the acquisition notes, the communications with Lucian Cross. For the first time, Vanessa looked at Marcus not with admiration, but with a question. Marcus ignored her. That told Elena everything. Men who love control never answer the questions that expose them. Elena, Marcus said, lowering his voice. You're upset. This is retaliation. She leaned back calmly. Retaliation was available yesterday. Today is procedure. He stared at her, And in that moment, Elena watched him understand two devastating things at once. He had married a woman he never truly knew, and the company he used to impress the world had never belonged to him at all. "Ms. Reed," Miriam said, turning to Vanessa, "you are also suspended pending review of unauthorized compensation through Gray Line Advisory and your presence on restricted company transport." Vanessa's mouth parted. "Unauthorized compensation?" Elena watched her closely. This shock was not performed. Marcus stood abruptly. "We're done here." Two security officers appeared at the door. "No," Elena said. "You are done here." Marcus's face hardened. "You think some paperwork changes everything?" Elena rose from her seat. "No, your actions did." She pushed a set of manifests toward him. "Miami, Lisbon, Chicago, Napa, Nassau. Private flights billed through protected operations. Personal guests listed as executive necessity. Mileage hidden inside vendor audits. Shall I continue?" Vanessa whispered, "Marcus." He never looked at her. Elena opened the last folder. "And then there's Lucienne Cross." Marcus's jaw tightened. Jalen moved closer to the wall, silent but alert. "Elena," Marcus said carefully, "you're stepping into something you don't understand." She almost pitied him for saying it. "My father taught me the company before you even learned where the hangar keys were kept," she said. "Everything you know, you learned while standing in rooms built by people you're now trying to sell." Vanessa gripped the table. "Lucienne? Why would Lucienne matter?" Elena answered without looking away from Marcus. "Because he has been circling this company for years. And because your partner there thought he could trade my family's legacy for a title." Vanessa flinched at the word partner. Not because it was inaccurate, because it was incomplete. Marcus's voice sharpened. "I'm not saying another word." Miriam nodded. "That is your right. Your building access, company accounts, and executive privileges are now frozen. Return your badges." Marcus stared at Elena as if anger alone could reverse reality. But anger is only useful when backed by leverage, and his leverage had vanished. As security escorted him toward the door, he turned once, eyes burning with a promise too ugly to speak aloud. Vanessa remained behind for half a second longer. Then she looked at Elena, really looked at her, and saw not the quiet wife from the divorce office, but a woman holding history, law, and patience in the same hand. Vanessa followed Marcus out, and Elena understood something dangerous. Marcus was not sorry. Not yet. A man like that never accepted loss quietly. He only changed strategies. Vanessa Reed sat inside her car for 17 full minutes before starting the engine. The parking garage was dim, the air stale, and for the first time in a long while, there were no admirers, no selfies, no reflective windows she wanted to check herself in. Her hands were shaking. Unauthorized compensation. Gray Line Advisory. Lucienne Cross. She unlocked her phone and searched her banking history. Nothing at first. Then memory shifted. A secondary account. A transfer portal Lucienne's assistant had once described as cleaner for consulting retention. Vanessa opened it. There it was.
Monthly deposits. 4,000. 8,000. 12,000. 15 after Chicago. The numbers stared back at her like confessions she had never asked to read.
She remembered the first time Lucien Cross spoke to her at an industry gala. He had told her she was wasted in branding, that she had executive instinct, that Marcus was being overlooked, that Hartwell Meridian was trapped in old structures and old loyalties. He said fresh people belonged in rooms where decisions were made. Vanessa had believed him because he had spoken directly to the part of her that was always hungry to be seen. She called Marcus. He answered on the third ring. "What?" "Did you know?" she asked. "Know what?" "That the payments were from Cross?" Silence. Then an exhale. "Vanessa, this is not the time." "Were you using me?" His tone changed immediately, the soft cruelty Elena knew too well. "Don't start this." Vanessa stared through the windshield. "Were you?" "You wanted this life too." That was not an answer. It was worse. Tears gathered, but she forced them back. "Did you know Elena controlled the company?" "No." "But you knew about Cross." Marcus lowered his voice. "Listen to me carefully. Elena thinks paper protects her. It doesn't. Boards panic. Records disappear. Narratives change." Vanessa went still. "What are you talking about?" Marcus said nothing for 2 seconds. Then he muttered, "I should have handled this before Isaiah died." Vanessa's entire body went cold. "What does that mean?" But the line was already dead. She sat there breathing too fast, hearing that sentence over and over again. Before Isaiah died. That was the moment vanity ended, and fear took its place. By sunset, Elena was sitting on the porch of Mrs. Ruth Avery, the woman who had known her father long before boardrooms, long before aircraft, long before Hartwell Meridian became a name people lowered their voices to say. The porch faced a quiet street lined with pecan trees. Wind moved through the leaves. A glass of sweet tea sweated on the small table beside Elena's chair. Ruth Avery believed in prayer, honesty, and letting people sit in truth long enough for it to stop hurting and start teaching. "You look tired, child," Ruth said, lowering herself into the rocking chair beside her. "I am." "Business tired or soul tired?" Elena gave a faint smile. "Both." Ruth nodded knowingly. "Those are different weights." Elena looked down at her father's old fountain pen, the one she carried in her purse since the funeral. "I was prepared for greed," she said. "I wasn't prepared for how small betrayal makes people." "Small people do large damage all the time," Ruth replied. "That's why wisdom has to be taller." Before Elena could answer, headlights rolled across the yard. A white sedan stopped at the curb. Jalen, who had been leaning against the porch rail, straightened immediately. Vanessa stepped out. No sunglasses, no smile, no performance. Only fear. Jalen gave a disbelieving laugh. "Absolutely not." Vanessa ignored him and looked directly at Elena. "I need 5 minutes." "You used up plenty yesterday," Jalen snapped. Elena rose slowly. "Why are you here?" Vanessa held up her phone with trembling fingers. "Because Marcus said something he can't unsay." Jalen moved toward the steps, but Ruth lifted one hand. "Let the girl speak." Vanessa swallowed. "I recorded the call." The porch grew still. Elena walked down 2 steps, eyes fixed on Vanessa's face. "Play it." Vanessa pressed her screen. Marcus's voice crackled through the evening air.
Elena thinks paper protects her. It doesn't. I should have handled this before Isaiah died. No one moved. The street, the porch, the wind, even the distant barking dog all seemed to retreat from the sound of that sentence. Elena held out her hand. "Give me the phone." Vanessa handed it over. Elena replayed the audio once, then again. The second time hurt more because it removed the possibility of mishearing. Ruth Avery stood from her chair. "Child," she said to Vanessa, "if you came to tell the truth, tell all of it." And before the story moves deeper into the trap they laid that night, please like and subscribe to the channel. Vanessa nodded quickly, as if any pause might cause her courage to collapse. "Lucian Cross has a meeting tomorrow night at Dock 9, the old freight terminal by the river. Marcus is going. I was supposed to be there too, but he doesn't trust me anymore." "Dock 9, Jalen said. "That place barely has cameras." "That's probably why they picked it," Elena replied. Vanessa continued. "I heard Lucian mention your father once. Not by name at first. He said some men become easier to negotiate with after they are declared unstable." Elena's expression changed. "Declared unstable?" Jalen repeated. Vanessa nodded. "Marcus said if you push too hard, they'd do to you what they tried to do to him." "To who?" Elena asked quietly. Vanessa's voice dropped. "Your father." For a moment, even Jalen had no words. Ruth laid a gentle hand on Elena's arm. "Breathe first. Decide second." Vanessa wiped at her cheek angrily. "There's more. Someone on your board is helping them. Marcus said the board would split the moment the pressure started." "Do you know who?" Elena asked. "No."
But Lucian said, "He's been waiting for this since before Isaiah got sick." Jalen cursed under his breath. Elena looked out toward the darkening street. The shape of the thing was becoming clearer now. The affair, the flights, the shell payments, the proposed takeover. And somewhere behind it all, men positioning grief as instability. She handed the phone to Jalen. "Send the recording to Miriam. Full copy. Timestamp intact." Then she turned back to Vanessa. "Every message, every payment, every invitation, every name. You give us all of it." Vanessa nodded immediately. "I will." Elena studied her for a long moment. "You were cruel," Elena said. Vanessa lowered her eyes. "I know. You helped humiliate me." "I know. You may not have understood the full game, but you knew enough to know it was wrong." Vanessa whispered. "Yes." Elena held her gaze. "Then now you get to decide whether shame will make you useless or honest." By 10 the next morning, Miriam had assembled the legal team, internal investigators, and a retired forensic accountant Isaiah Hartwell used whenever he suspected elegant theft. Vanessa's records poured across the conference table. Message threads, wire confirmations, event invitations, calendar holds, and coded references buried inside lifestyle emails. Lucian Cross's people were careful, but careful people still leave patterns. The payments lined up with private route usage. The route usage lined up with pre-board discussions. And the discussions aligned with false concern narratives centered around executive stability. Miriam stood near the screen, remote in hand. "They're building a case structure," she said. "If Elena moves publicly and aggressively, they'll claim emotional impairment, recent divorce instability, retaliatory governance,
and unfit stewardship under grief. Jalen leaned against the wall. So the plan is to let them say it first? No, Elena said. The plan is to let them say it where they cannot deny it later. Captain Pierce had arranged surveillance access at Dock 9 through an old freight security partner loyal to Isaiah. 2 working cameras already existed inside the terminal. 3 more were installed that afternoon under maintenance cover. Audio pickup was weaker, but Miriam secured directional support through a mobile operations van. At 4 o'clock, a final surprise arrived. Elena's uncle, Darius Hartwell, walked in carrying a weathered leather tube and the look of a man who had spent too many years outrunning old regrets. He hugged Elena without a word. Then he set the leather tube on the table. Your father left this with me, Darius said.
Told me not to open it unless the hyenas came inside the fence. Elena looked at the tube. What is it? I didn't know, he admitted. He said you would. Elena unscrewed the brass cap. Inside was a folded property schematic, a sealed note, and a tiny key taped beneath the inner lining. Jalen stared. What is that key for? Elena looked down at the fountain pen in her hand, the one Isaiah always carried. He once told her it was more useful than it looked. She twisted the base. A narrow compartment opened. Inside was a matching lock slot. Darius exhaled. Your daddy and his secrets. Elena inserted the key. The pen clicked, and something metallic slid free into her palm. A data chip. Isaiah Hartwell, even in death, was still setting the table for truth. The chip contained exactly what Isaiah had believed someone might one day try to bury. Private notes, audio memos, draft legal correspondence, board concerns, medical competency pressure attempts, and one name repeated too often to ignore. Thomas Wren. Thomas Wren had sat beside Elena at Isaiah's funeral. He had embraced her. He had called her family. He had offered support, guidance, and continuity. For years, he had served on the board as one of Isaiah's oldest associates. But Isaiah's notes told another story. Wren increasingly aligned with outside pressure, repeats Lucian talking points, suggests transition planning in private. Attempted soft discussion of temporary oversight after my stress episode. Watching him. Miriam looked up from the screen. There it is. Jalen swore. Thomas Wren? Darius gave a bitter nod. That man has envied your father since they were bidding on cargo lanes in the 90s. Some people clap for your success while praying for your stumble. Elena kept reading. One memo chilled the room. If anything happens to me suddenly before the trust amendment is formally activated, investigate Wren, Cross, and any executive seeking unusual access through Marcus. If I am declared impaired without cause, consider it coordinated. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Elena closed the file. They wanted to use grief against him, she said. Miriam nodded. And now, against you. Darius placed one hand on the back of her chair. Then you don't give them grief in public. Elena stood. No, I give them evidence. By 9 that night, the operations team was in place. Airport compliance officers were briefed. State investigators had been looped in through Miriam's contacts. Dock 9 remained dark from the outside, rusted and quiet near the riverfront. The kind of place where bad decisions often mistook themselves for secrecy. In the mobile security room 2 blocks away, Elena stood before a bank of screens. On one feed, empty concrete. On another, stacked freight cages. On a third, the broad metal doors of the old terminal. Jalen entered carrying coffee no one would drink. "You ready?" Elena looked at the screens. "No," she said honestly. Then she took the cup anyway. "But I'm prepared." And sometimes, when people are planning to bury your name, prepared is more dangerous than ready. Lucian Cross arrived first, stepping out of a black sedan with the careless ease of a man who had spent too many years believing consequences were for other people. He wore a dark overcoat and carried no visible worry. 2 associates followed behind him with briefcases. 7 minutes later, Marcus arrived. No polished confidence now. No lake house charm. His tie was loosened, his jaw tight, the fury on his face only half concealed. Desperate men always move faster than intelligent men. That is how they make themselves readable. Then came Thomas Wren. Elena felt that one like a bruise. On the monitor, Wren greeted Lucian with the false familiarity of men who had long ago chosen ambition over loyalty. Miriam increased the audio feed. Lucian's voice crackled through the speakers. "We move fast. Elena Hartwell is emotional, recently divorced, and making destabilizing executive decisions." Marcus crossed his arms. "She already suspended me." Lucian didn't even look at him. "Temporary inconvenience." Thomas Wren adjusted his glasses. "If she accelerates removal actions, we raise fiduciary concern. With enough pressure, the court may appoint neutral oversight." Jalen muttered, "Neutral my foot." Lucian continued. "Then Meridian can accept structured rescue financing." Darius laughed once in disgust. "They don't want rescue. They want control." On screen, Marcus stepped closer. "I want my position guaranteed." Lucian finally turned to him with faint amusement. "You'll receive what your usefulness justifies." Marcus's face darkened. Elena saw it instantly. He had done terrible things, but even now he believed betrayal should reward him more generously than this. That was the arrogance of men like Marcus. They used others and were still shocked when they themselves were used in return. Then, Thomas Wren said the thing that silenced the room. "What about Isaiah's original amendment?" he asked. "If that surfaces, Elena becomes harder to challenge." Lucian waved a dismissive hand. "It won't." Miriam looked at Elena. Elena said nothing. Because in her coat pocket rested the restored amendment data, verified, duplicated, and already delivered to legal custody before this meeting even began. Lucian thought the future depended on missing documents. He had no idea the documents were no longer missing. The conversation turned uglier from there. Marcus paced once, then stopped. "Elena won't back down." Lucian gave a cold smile. "Then you make her look reckless." Thomas Wren nodded. "Push hard enough, and she'll break the calm image." Jalen looked at Elena. "They really don't know you." But Elena was no longer watching Marcus or Lucian. She was watching Thomas. Because betrayal from enemies stings. Betrayal from men who stood at your father's grave enters differently. On screen, Marcus spoke again. "And Vanessa?" Lucian shrugged. "Disposable. If she talks, we frame her as a jealous participant who panicked once the affair stopped paying." The door to the mobile room opened quietly behind them. Vanessa stepped in. Naomi from reception had brought her in through the side route to avoid media eyes. Vanessa heard the sentence on the monitor and stopped walking. The little color she had regained disappeared from her face. "Disposable," she repeated softly. No one answered, because everyone in that room understood the cruelty of hearing your own role summarized so precisely. Vanessa stood beside Jalen, eyes fixed on the screen, as Marcus said absolutely nothing in her defense. Not one word. Not even out of habit. The truth finally reached her completely then. She had not been a chosen woman. She had been a managed asset. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she forced herself steady. Elena looked at her only briefly. "Now you understand." Vanessa nodded once. "Yes." Miriam's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up. "Investigators are in position. Port Authority too. Once we move, there's no walking it back." Elena drew one slow breath. In every story, people imagine justice as dramatic. A slam, a scream, a public collapse. But justice is usually quieter than that. It is a folder correctly prepared. A witness willing to stop lying. A recording that speaks at the right time. A man who thinks he is hidden while a camera is already watching. Elena straightened. "Open the terminal doors," she said. Miriam sent the signal. On screen, the massive freight doors of Dock 9 began to rise. River light and floodlight spilled into the building. Lucian turned first. Thomas Wren froze. Marcus stepped back, and Elena started walking. When Elena entered Dock 9, she did not rush. She walked with Miriam on one side, Darius on the other, Jalen 2 steps behind, and investigators closing in with badges already visible. Vanessa followed at the rear, not as an ally exactly, but as someone finally choosing the right side of a terrible truth. The floodlights above threw long shadows across the concrete. Lucian recovered first. Men like him always tried language before surrender. "This is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. Miriam answered before Elena had to. "No, this is a documented conspiracy involving fiduciary interference, protected trust obstruction, data theft, and coordinated attempts to manipulate governance." Thomas Wren's mouth went dry. Marcus looked only at Elena, not at the investigators, not at Lucian, only at her. As if somewhere inside him, he still believed he could bring this back to emotion and away from evidence. "Elena," he said, "listen to me." "No," she replied. "You listen." She stepped closer, stopping just far enough away to keep dignity between them. "You laughed when you signed those papers," she said. "You thought you were ending my life. You were only removing yourself from my protection." Marcus's face shifted, the first crack of genuine fear. Lucian tried again. "You have no idea who you are embarrassing." Elena turned to him then, and her voice was quiet enough that everyone leaned in to hear. "I know exactly who I am exposing." That line landed. Investigators moved toward Lucian and Thomas Wren simultaneously. Thomas finally spoke, but not to Elena. "Marcus, say something." Marcus looked at him with hatred now, not loyalty. Because a man will ignore betrayal until he realizes he was never the favorite traitor in the room. Darius stepped forward and faced Wren directly. "Isaiah treated you like a brother." Wren's composure cracked. "Isaiah treated everyone like they should be grateful." There it was. Not strategy, not necessity. Envy. the oldest poison in respectable clothes. Elena watched him with almost clinical sadness. Some men spend so long resenting another person's light that they never notice what the darkness does to their own face. And while Lucien was handcuffed and Ren turned away from the cameras that had finally found him, Marcus remained where he was, as if his body had not yet informed itself that the ground beneath him was gone. Marcus looked smaller without the performance. Not physically, spiritually. His expensive coat hung wrong. His breathing was uneven. The arrogance had drained from him so quickly, it seemed to take color with it. Vanessa stood several feet away, arms folded tightly across herself.
Marcus glanced at her as if expecting rescue from habit alone. She gave him nothing. That shook him more than the investigators.
"Elena," he said again, voice rough now. "I made mistakes." She shook her head once. "Mistakes are sudden. This was architecture." His eyes glistened, and for a fraction of a second, Elena saw the man she once loved, or rather, the version of him she had once believed in. That illusion hurt to lose, even now. "I was angry," he said. "I felt like I never mattered in your family." "You were welcomed in my family." "I was invisible." "No," Elena answered. "You were impatient." He took a step toward her. Jalen moved instantly, but Elena lifted one hand and Jalen stopped. Marcus's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I loved you." That sentence would have destroyed her once. Tonight, it only made her tired. "You loved what standing next to me did for your reflection," she said. His shoulders collapsed slightly. Lucien was being escorted out. Ren had stopped talking entirely. The terminal echoed with boots, radios, and clipped legal language. And then Marcus did the one thing no one expected. He dropped to his knees, right there on the concrete, in front of investigators, in front of Vanessa, in front of the legal team, the cameras, the witnesses, and the future that would remember this moment long after his ego tried to forget it. "Please," he said, "don't let them take everything. I'll cooperate. I'll tell them about Lucien, about Ren, about the route files, about all of it." Elena looked down at him. There was no satisfaction in it. That was the part people misunderstand about justice. Watching someone shrink is not the same thing as healing. "You will tell the truth," she said. "Not what saves you. The truth." Marcus nodded too fast. "Yes, yes." "And then," Elena continued, "you will live with what it costs." His face broke at that, because consequences are easy to discuss in theory and unbearable when they learn your address. Jalen looked away. Vanessa closed her eyes, and Elena stood there steady, realizing that the marriage had truly ended not in the divorce room, but here, on cold concrete, beneath harsh light, with no lies left to hold it together. The months that followed did not move like a movie. There was no single triumphant morning when everything felt repaired. No magical courtroom line. No instant redemption. Real fallout is slower than revenge fantasies. It arrives in documents, interviews, subpoenas, frozen assets, sworn statements, and the quiet exhaustion of telling the same truth repeatedly
until institutions finally listen. Lucian Cross's holding group splintered first.
Investigators uncovered layered fraud, bribery attempts, manipulated shell vendors, and acquisition tactics that crossed lines even his lawyers could not blur. Investors ran from him. Partners distanced themselves. Media that once admired his precision began calling it what it was: predation in expensive packaging. Thomas Wren resigned before the board could remove him formally, but resignation did not spare him scrutiny. Old votes were re-examined, old communications resurfaced. Men who survive for years inside respectable structures often forget how much dust they leave behind. Marcus cooperated, but cooperation did not make him noble. It merely made him useful at last. He gave statements. He identified meetings. He confirmed routes, internal leaks, and Cross's plan to engineer questions about Elena's emotional fitness. He cried twice in deposition, once from shame, once from self-pity. Elena learned to tell the difference. Vanessa testified too. She gave everything: messages, payment histories, event invites, names, and timelines. She lost her job. Her social circle thinned almost overnight. Many of the people who once praised her style and confidence disappeared the moment attention stopped flattering them. Humiliation, Elena learned, is rarely distributed fairly. Some people earn it. Some just finally meet the truth. Through it all, Elena stayed in motion. She restored trust lines, replaced compromised staff, strengthened governance rules, expanded internal ethics review. And every evening, when the building emptied and the terminals quieted, she sat in her father's office for a few minutes with the door closed, letting herself feel the weight she refused to perform in public. Grief was still there. It had simply changed shape. No longer a wound others could use against her. Now, it was a vow. One late afternoon, nearly 6 months after Doc 9, Vanessa came to Ruth Avery's porch carrying no designer handbag, no dramatic expression, and no story about why life had been unfair to her. She stood at the bottom of the steps, like someone arriving without costume for the first time. Elena was already there, seated with a notebook on her lap, reviewing plans for a youth apprenticeship initiative tied to Meridian's maintenance division. Vanessa stopped 3 feet away. "I don't expect forgiveness." Elena closed the notebook. "Good." Vanessa nodded. "I wasn't asking for it." That mattered. She looked thinner, not physically alone, but socially stripped, as though the collapse of performance had taken some false architecture with it. "I was cruel," Vanessa said. "Not because I was strong, because I wanted to feel chosen." Ruth Avery from her chair murmured, "That's an expensive hunger." Vanessa gave a broken little laugh. "It was." Elena studied her face. No perfect innocence, no convenient self-hatred either. Just a woman finally looking at the damage she had helped create. "That truth doesn't excuse what you did," Elena said. "I know. But it may be the first honest thing you've built." Vanessa's eyes filled, though she kept her composure. "I'm volunteering at the Community Intake Center near South Harbor. Quiet work. Filing, scheduling, outreach." Elena nodded once. "Then keep doing quiet work." Vanessa took that in with the seriousness it deserved. Because quiet work is how some people begin becoming real. When she left, Ruth sipped her tea and said, "Not everybody who breaks becomes better." "No," Elena agreed. "But some do." "And Marcus?" Elena looked toward the street. "Marcus is learning what life sounds like when no one is applauding him." Ruth smiled sadly. "That can be a loud silence." Elena reopened her notebook.
Inside were plans her father had dreamed about for years. Pilot scholarships, mechanical training, freight logistics internships, a business incubator for young operators from neighborhoods investors ignored unless land values rose. Legacy, her father used to say, was not what you displayed. It was what you prepared other people to carry. Elena underlined the final budget number and smiled to herself. For the first time in a long time, the future no longer felt like a courtroom. It felt like construction. A year later, Hartwell Meridian launched the Isaiah Hartwell Aviation and Logistics Fellowship on the same runway where Marcus once strutted for photographs he had no right to claim. But the place looked different now. Not because the aircraft were newer, because the purpose was. Rows of students from public schools and community colleges walked through the hangar with wide eyes and clipboards. Young men asked about licensing pathways. Young women touched turbine housings and asked engineers about certification hours. Parents stood near the back, trying not to cry too visibly. Retired mechanics volunteered at demonstration stations. Pilots explained weather mapping with the patience of people who understood how life changes when someone finally opens a door for you. Elena stood near the podium, watching them. The flagship jet glowed behind her, not as a trophy this time, but as a classroom, a tool, a promise. Darius stood near the front beside Miriam. Jalen managed crowd flow with security while pretending he did not enjoy being unofficial family command.
Ruth Avery sat in the first row, wearing a deep purple hat and enough pride to light the whole hangar herself. At the registration table, Vanessa worked quietly with the volunteer team, checking names and handing out packets. No makeup for performance, no camera angle hunting, just work. When Elena stepped to the microphone, the hangar softened into silence. "People often think legacy is what a family keeps," she said. "My father taught me something different. Legacy is what you protect long enough to pass on." The students listened. "So this fellowship is not charity," Elena continued. "It is correction. Talent has always been here. Discipline has always been here. Vision has always been here. Opportunity has simply been selective." A murmur of agreement moved through the audience. "This place will train pilots, dispatchers, mechanics, route planners, and founders. It will invest in people who were told to wait outside important rooms. It will remind them the room was never too important for them. It was simply too small for their future." Ruth Avery dabbed at her eyes. Jalen looked away fast. And Elena, standing where betrayal once nearly swallowed her peace, realized something profound. Winning had never been the real point. Building after surviving was. After the ceremony, the crowd thinned slowly into the evening. The runway lights blinked on one by one. The hangar doors remained open, and warm air rolled through the space, carrying distant engine noise and the low laughter of students still taking photographs beside aircraft they could now imagine touching again someday. This time as professionals, not visitors. Elena walked alone toward the jet after most guests had gone. She placed one hand against the cool metal body and looked out across the darkening airfield. A year earlier, Marcus had believed divorce would reduce her. Lucian had believed grief would destabilize her. Thomas Wren had believed history could be stolen if he waited for the right weakness. Vanessa had believed attention meant power. All of them had been wrong. Silence had not been emptiness. It had been strategy. Pain had not been the end. It had been instruction. And justice, when it finally arrived, had not turned Elena cruel. It had made her clearer. She took her father's fountain pen from her coat pocket and turned it once in her hand. Such a simple object. Elegant. Useful. Quiet. Like him. Like the lessons he left her. Behind her, footsteps approached softly. It was Jalen. "They're asking if you're coming to dinner," he said. "In a minute." He smiled. "You did good today." Elena looked at the fellowship banner hanging near the hangar entrance.
"No," she said gently. "We did good today. My father started it. We just refused to let smaller people finish the story."
Jalen nodded and left her there. Elena stayed another moment, breathing in jet fuel, evening air, and the kind of peace that does not come from revenge alone, but from surviving long enough to choose purpose over bitterness. Then she smiled. A small, real smile the cameras did not catch. Because some victories do not need witnesses. They only need truth. And before we close this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Elena turned back toward the light, toward her people, toward the voices waiting inside the hangar, and walked forward without looking behind her again. Because the loudest people had already said everything they had.